Well, welcome back to the channel, and I'm glad you're still watching. Far more people are watching than I thought they were or ever would be, and credit that to Coachman and their Cross Trail Extreme. I think it's a great RV, and but this video isn't about that. This video is actually about problems that we had. We were just finishing up a 5,000-mile trip, and it got pretty rough. We're driving along, and service lights started coming on, and check engine lights coming on, and my phone is blowing up with emails from the Ford app that there are issues. And so that's what we want to talk about here. And part of the reason for doing this video is to explain that situation, but also maybe as a counter a little bit to all the horror stories you hear on YouTube and other platforms regarding new RVs and all of the problems and issues that a lot of people are having with their brand new RVs. This again is a 2024. We're going on 6 months now and close to 15,000 miles, and kind of put it through its paces. But I've been watching lately a lot of YouTube videos of horror stories of between the RV itself and the dealership and the manufacturer, and just nightmares that people are going through, and my heart goes out to them. I feel bad for them, and I'm hoping they're the exception to the rule and we're more the norm, but I don't really know. But you don't see a lot of good stories out there about people having great experiences with their brand new RVs, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to put this out there. There are some channels that just seems like the whole channel is nothing but these horrible stories with different dealerships and manufacturers, and we just didn't have that. Had we seen all of that before buying this, it would have gave me reservations about doing so. It certainly gives you the impression that they're all just absolute slap together as fast as they can and fall apart as soon as you get them, and nobody wants to talk to you after the fact. That's not the case here. So we're driving through kind of central North Texas, and these lights start coming on. And so using the Ford app, which I really like, I actually use it almost every day, checking tire pressures and oil life and things like that. But it also, helps you with roadside assistance things. So when these things came on, we immediately called the nearest Ford dealership. And we got a hold of the service manager named Tom, and he instantly starts diagnosing as we're going. What's this doing? What's your RPMs? What's your temperature? What's all of that? And determined that based on all the information he had, that we're safe to drive to his location, which was about another 20 minutes away or 30 minutes, something like that. And then they would take a look at it. So we get there, and within 20, 30 minutes, I would say, they're really getting into it and trying to figure out what's going on, put it up on the lift, get underneath it, couple technicians, and in this dealership there's a big window so you can watch them, what they're doing and how many people are doing and all of that. And so Tom comes back and says, well, look, here's the problem. You've got a cable, and I don't remember all the details, and I don't want to bore you with that, but there was a cable that's a Ford cable that runs from one part to another part, and it melted. Apparently it was laid across the catalytic converter or something that heats up, and it melted through the housing and then the insulation and then the cable itself. There were about 3 or 4 different cables inside, and one of them finally melted, shorted out, and it had something to do with your emissions. So it wasn't engine related, but I didn't know, but we got there and they knew. And so he said, look, we've got to order this from Fort Worth. It's going to be shipped overnight, and we can put it in for you in the morning. You can park right here in the lot. It's very common. A lot of RVers do that. So they brought it down off the lift, put it out there for us, and we were able to stay the night in there, which was fantastic. Got it back in first thing in the morning. They immediately started working on it. They had the part. They brought it out. They were doing, one of the things I was worried about is, look, if we had this problem, other people are going to have this problem, and I wasn't certain if it was with the Transit or if it was with Coachman. So Tom was fantastic. He's been doing this for almost 30 years and really knew his stuff. He was very familiar with the Transit, cutaways and RV builds and things like that. And they came back not just with the parts and explanation, but with about a dozen photographs to show me exactly what was going on, because I wasn't getting up underneath that thing for liability reasons in their shop. So what happened was, when Coachman got the cutaway Transit and then built it, it broke a cable. And so they had to replace the cable. Well, when they replaced it, the cable that they got, which was a Ford part, but it wasn't the exact right part, because the exact right part was a little bit longer. That was the only difference between these two housings and cable, was one was a little bit longer. They got the shorter one. As a result of that, they could not put it in the house, not the housing, but there was connectors that held it on, so it went over the top of whatever it laid down on. Well, it couldn't reach it. So what Coachmen did was just put it in there, and it ended up resting on top of it, and I'm sure they didn't think it was going to be an issue. And for over 10,000 miles, it wasn't an issue, but on this day it was. It finally melted through that because whatever was sitting on, catalytic converter or whatever, heated up. So it melted through that. So, and they could actually see pieces of the wire of the old one, the original one that was in there, that got torn away. So it was very clear to Ford that this wasn't their failure, that this was a failure during the construction at Coachmen when the RV was built onto the chassis. So I contacted Motorhome Specialist where we bought it and talked to Nolan, service manager, and he immediately says, look, I'm very interested in this. I want to know exactly what's going on with this and all the details of it. And so I got it. He immediately sent it to his rep at Coachmen. They reviewed everything and determined, yep, that's us. That's our issue. Give us what the amount was, because, you know, Ford wasn't going to warranty it, so I had to pay for the repairs, which is a little over $1,000 because of the parts and labors and so forth. And then Nolan just said, give me that paperwork, which I did. He sent it on to Coachmen. That's not the normal way, obviously. You go through warranty work with Coachmen, but they made an exception for me of this, and their service department approved that and reimbursed me for that work that was done. But I got to say, in this incident, I'd worked very closely with Ford, who built the chassis and the whole cutaway and everything. I had to work closely with Motorhome Specialist and Coachmen, and all three of them not only stood up and stood behind their product, but they did it very, very quickly. And if you've been RVing for any length of time at all, you understand that getting an appointment and getting in and getting work done, it's just almost not worth it, because it just takes so long. They're so busy, and then once they get in and take a look at it, then they've got to order parts for it. You got to wait for that, and I don't feel like they jumped through hoops, but they were just on the spot and they were ready to take care of it. And I can't say enough about Ford for everything that they did, how quickly they worked, get us back on the road. We didn't have, rent-a-cars and hotels or any of that stuff because of how good they were and how accommodating they were to us when we were there. And then for Motorhome Specialists to step up and say, look, we'll take care of that for you. Just send it to us. We'll send it on to our rep at Coachmen, because they wanted to know, is this an issue that's indicative for all of these Coachmens going out? Is it going to be a recall or something like that? And it turns out it's not, because it doesn't have anything to do with the way Coachmen wired it. It was just a one-off issue when something happened with the manufacturer. So I don't think it's going to happen to anybody else, and that's good news, because that was one of the things I was worried about, because a recall like that could be a very, very expensive issue and time-consuming for everybody involved. But in our case, if you have an RV long enough, you're going to have these issues. The handier you are and the more you can do, then the better off you're going to be and the more enjoyment you're going to have in your rig. But there are going to be things that you can't deal with, and like this, this was one of them for us. So we're thrilled about that. We did have another issue, and while we stopped at Motorhome Specialist and gave them this stuff, we realized that while we were at the Ford dealership, it had been in the shop most of the day. They brought it out, and it was hot. It was like 95 degrees, and so we were going to run the air conditioning all night, but the batteries are a little bit low. So we said, well, let's turn the generator on and juice them up a little bit, and then we don't even have to worry about it. It'll go all night. And then we turned the generator on, and it would run for like 10 minutes and then shut off. Run for 10 minutes, shut off. Like, what is going on? So called Nolan again. He sent their rep out for generators that does nothing but generators. And he's troubleshooting, and he mostly does Onan. He doesn't do this particular one. But, and he couldn't figure out what is going on with this thing. And so I decided, well, let me call, there's a number on there, for the paperwork. I'll call the manufacturer. And I apologize, I forget the name of the manufacturer of this generator, of the RV, but it wasn't Onan. And they answered right away. And I said, look, this is what's going on. And he says, okay, well, if you start the generator from the outside, does it run? I don't know. So we went outside, started it, waited. The thing never turned off. So shut it off, did it again from the remote inside start, and same thing. 10 minutes later, it shuts off. He says, okay, there's an issue with the remote and how it's talking to the generator, and it's the number of pins that are in the cable or something like that. He says, I'm going to send you another cable. It's going to take you about 2 minutes to install. And they did that. They mailed over one, and I got it. And I went underneath there. You don't have to take anything apart. They're like really just right up underneath there, right there. And it didn't take 2 minutes. It took like 10 seconds to do that. And started it up and stayed running. So that resolved that issue right there. So wow, between Ford, Coachman, Motorhome Specialist, and the manufacturers of the parts and pieces that are all inside here, man, I think this is a great, experience that we continue to have with this particular RV. And again, I hope it's, people don't click on these videos to see great stories about how people are enjoying their RVs and, the manufacturer standing behind it and the dealership standing behind it and all of that. You're going to click on a story where people are having big problems and it's a nightmare and, but we're not. And I'm happy we're continuing, the way we are, and hope you like this video. And, we'll do some more outside stuff and where you're going to see a little more of the RV in action coming up soon. Thanks so much.